Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. We're here in Las Vegas for SHOT Show 2025. This is going to be the last podcast in a series of podcasts that we've done this week. I have Richie Arnold from RA Tactics sitting in the chair across from me. Richie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and honored to be the last but not least on your podcast. So
yeah, I feel actually it's just real quick. It's important to give a shout out to who hooked us up. That was our friend Luis over from the Triple Feed.
Oh, those guys are awesome.
Club Triple Feed.
Yep.
You got Luis, Jerry, Brian, and Paulie over there. Those guys have been very good to me. Triple Feed's an awesome group of dudes.
They're phenomenal dudes. Anytime I have a chance to hook up with them, I definitely do. They put on great classes and even better people. So.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Like I said, they've always been very supportive of me, so that's cool. Often copied, never duplicated. Kind of group of dudes. I don't know how you could do that. So shout out to Triple Feed. Listen, Richie, there's so many things I have to talk to you about today. I want to go a few different directions with it. But just kind of kicking it off, you work for a law enforcement agency located in the state of Nevada. I'll let you kind of go through your bio, but there's some special operations in there, which gives you some perspective that I want to get into on a couple of things, and we'll get there when we get there. But a lot of it has to do with sort of these mass incident type of things that we've been seeing around the nation currently, but also in the past. Mm-hmm. And, some truths behind that, give some insights to that. I have questions about that. I wonder here, we're sitting in Las Vegas, Nevada, right? I mean, it's people everywhere, all the time in a place like this. I live in a major metropolitan city, and I just want to dig into that a little bit and also give the audience some perspective on what the realities of the situation is for them as citizens or law enforcement officers, maybe and where they're at, that don't maybe have some of the same insights that you have and the experiences you've had. So anyways,
absolutely.
That said, let's tell me about Richie, man. Who are you? Where'd you come from? How did you get here?
Oh, well, shit. Am I allowed to curse?
Oh, you can say whatever. There's no filter on this.
Okay,
thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because I have no filter, I've been told. But I was forced here by my parents. We came here when I was young, about 10 years old, so about 30 years ago, and came from the East Coast area, so Pittsburgh, so go Steelers.
Okay.
And came out here, went to school out here, and always wanted to be a cop, and went to UNLV. Didn't graduate because I became a cop about 24 credits shy of a bachelor's degree as of 23 years ago, and just never went back.
You've been on 20 years?
Yeah, oh yeah. So since 2005.
I'm gonna be real upfront. How old are you, man?
I'm 40.
Wow, man. All right, so you started. You were a pup.
I fresh out of college. So fresh out of college with that. Got with the department and hit the road for a solid 9 years or so, hitting a patrol car. And worked a few little minor details from there, like a burglary action team. I was a field training officer, department training officer. Was really heavily involved in our training division for a while, defensive tactics, firearms, less lethal stuff. Actually worked for Taser, Axon for a while as a master instructor, so I'd travel and teach their classes for a little bit. And then my world got completely turned upside down when a SWAT guy was like, "Hey, man, let's see how good you actually are." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, we have this program called the RSO program, Reserve SWAT Operator. We should try out for it." I was like, "Well, what is it?" He's like, "Well, basically, it's a TDY. Basically, it's like you're on with our team for a month, and then the next month you go back to your patrol squad, you work it, and then the other guys they come over,
they filter in.
And the RSO program is basically like an equipment team, a containment team, stuff like that. Call outs, go grab the equipment, go grab the gear. You take up containment spots, you take up driver spots. You don't make entry because that's what kind of separates the full-time guys from the reserve guys." And I was like, "All right, well, that sounds a little interesting. Maybe I'll do that." And tested for it, became a reserve, and I was like, "Yeah, we'll see how this goes." Because my heart really at the time wasn't set in SWAT. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I wanted to be a canine officer.
Oh, really?
That was prior to being married, having a dog of my own, and having a kid. And then now looking back now, I'm like, thank God I didn't become a canine officer, because I cannot imagine bringing this goddamn mutt home every night, having a marked unit in my driveway, and just like, So I was like, all right, let's try the SWAT thing out. And I remember day one, our day one I was on there, we get activated, and they suit me up and like, all right, you're doing this, you're doing that. And we're riding on the rails in the van heading there, and my heart's going a million miles a minute, and everyone's just looking at us. I'm like, oh God, this is the greatest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And from that moment on, I was
you were hooked. Yeah.
I was hooked. Ended up testing for a full-time position later on, a few years later, and ended up getting on the team and working my way up to the ranks to where now I'm the assistant team leader on the team. And basically, big title just basically means I get the first phone call to be like, hey, this is the problem, solve it.
Yep.
And get together with our team leaders who are our supervisors, and we get the people together and solve said problem. And I absolutely love that job. It is the best decision I've ever made. Every time I see that guy who's like, hey, let's see how good you are, I thank him, like, thank you for pushing me to do this, because I had no idea that this was my future in law enforcement.
That's so from the time you got sort of tapped or recruited for this tryout, basically is what this kind of sounds like.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's what it is. I guess from then till now, how long has it been?
So that was 2014.
Okay.
So beginning of 2014.
10 years.
Yep. So 10 years. So 2014. Then moving on now is moving on to the 11th year of being on the team between reserve and full time. And this is my 8th year full time. Did 3 years reserve, and so 11 years total with the team, and thousands of activations later and warrants. And yet here we are.
Are any of the people, well, when you were first going through this tryout, this RSO program, are any of those guys still on the team?
Yes. So the one of our claim to fame now is, well, let me take that back. Claim to fame is that everyone on the team now has been an RSO. When I became an RSO, the RSO program was still new, and not the full-time guys didn't experience that program. They're just like, hey, we're going to try you out for SWAT, try you out for SWAT. And what's great about this program is like, hey, if this was 15, 16, 20 years ago, me, Richie, I try out for SWAT and I come on the team and they're like, yeah, you passed the quals and the physical fitness and you passed the oral board and you made the list, you're on the team, but you're a fucking dick. We don't you don't mesh with the team at all. Like, we don't even want you here. And that's what's great about the RSO program. It's like an unofficial interview period. How well does that guy work with us? How well does he take criticism? Does he respond to training? Can he adapt in stressful situations, in these containment spots, in these driving spots, in these training situations? And then when it's time for that person to test for full time, we already know he's plug and play. He's ready to go.
How does this work with the department just in terms of you being on part-time? So are they absorbing you and you're still working patrol?
So that you have 2 rotations. You have, for lack of better terms, A group and B group. Well, A group is RSO, B group is working their patrol squads. And that's month by month. Caveat is that you are subject to callback to patrol based off patrol needs. So if your patrol is really, really shorthanded, say they get an officer-involved shooting, or lots of people are sick, they'll call you back like, hey, we need Richie back. And we can't have him with you anymore. He needs to come work the road because our shift is short. And then that's how it works from there. And then we just rotate back and forth with the rotations.
So I'm hearing it sounds like a fantastic program, right?
Phenomenal.
For a lot of reasons. The bigger thing is the culture piece and making sure you're actually doing a selection, rather than like an appointment, right, kind of thing. So I can hear people out there going, that is an awesome idea. I wonder if we could do that. And what is always the limiting factor when it comes to doing that stuff? Money, right? And finance. And that's why I asked that question.
So the RSO program, that's why I say it's a TDY. They have 0 property rights to the position. They don't get paid any extra. It's like a volunteer program. They don't get a take-home car. They don't get standby pay. They don't get They don't get assignment differential pay. They are just basically there on their own free will that they had to try out for. So you have to try out for that program. So that's where the kind of the defining line is. At the cost department, 0 money. The only thing you have to buy is uniforms for them.
Gear,
Make sure they have some gear. If they get called out, pay them the overtime. But that's it. They're saving thousands and thousands of dollars on the program for guys. And it actually helps supplement our team, because we joke around. We're like, I don't even know where this piece of equipment is in Bearcat anymore because I haven't grabbed it in 10 years. And you're like, hey, RSO, go grab that for me. And if you got to grab it, that guy's not there. Be like, hey, can you grab this? I'm like, yeah, give me a minute. Like I'll try to find it. But it's great in that aspect. And the department has grown throughout the years. It's been such a successful program. We are now trying to implement where it is being instated to where they're going to start getting take-home vehicles. They're getting standby pay when they are on rotation.
More benefits.
With us. So they get a little more benefits. But the tricky part for anyone thinking about implementing this program is you have to have a hard defined line of what's reserve and what's full-time. Because administrations, they'll say, this sounds like a great program. I have a SWAT team of 20 dudes and a reserve team of 15. why am I paying 20 dudes all this money when I'm paying these 15 nothing? And they do the same job.
That's a good point.
So let's have 5.
Theoretically, on paper, they do the same job.
Yeah, technically,
because there's payroll coming out or whatever. The bean counters are doing that, but the reality of it is they're not doing anywhere near the same job.
They're not. But some departments who try to do that, they make the mistake because there is no separation. Their reserves are allowed to make entry, or alternates, what they call them.
Okay.
Our guys, that's our hard line. They do not do the same job because they do not make entry. So that's where you can't have, and some administrations may think, oh, let's just pay 5 guys to be full-time and have 30 guys reserved. So we're saving all that money by having 5 guys and then 30 guys over here we don't pay, but they're doing the same thing. And eventually you just have a team full of reserves, which doesn't get money in it, and it's not as effective. So we're like, hey, they don't make entry, they don't do the same job. And they're like, okay, that's heard. And that has been very, very good for us. And our administration has been phenomenal at allowing the program to stay aboard and be as flexible as it is with it. And now allowing them to have a little bit more benefits like a take-home car or standby pay, stuff like that when they are on rotation with us.
Are you the guy doing the tapping for the recruitment of this, or who's doing that on the team? Who's that assigned to?
So it's really not assigned to anybody. Recruiting for SWAT is kind of like it's almost like it's a bad taste in a team's mouth, because it's like, hey, go try to find people to take your job. So we're like, hey, we're under the mentality like, hey, if you want to be SWAT, you're going to come to us. We shouldn't have to come beg you. Hey, come join our team. Of course, there's some people who may see in the academy on the road and be like, hey, have you thought about the RSO program or thought about coming to SWAT? Because we see a potential. So that's just kind of put on anybody, to where if you see potential in someone, introduce them to them. Say, hey, come over, become TDY, come train with us, come work out, do whatever it is that you need to do. And then our door's always open. But there are times when we are tasked like, hey, go to these briefings, let them know the programs there, let them know we're testing, blah, blah, blah. And so we get up there and we're like, you guys got any questions? We're testing. This is what we do, blah, blah, blah. And it's just crickets.
Really?
And that's just a thing in law enforcement today, that not only finding in our department, but being here at SHOT Show, talking with people from numerous agencies and being able to train with raw tactics, going nationwide and train with other agencies that bring me on, or these conferences that I teach at as well, these tactical conferences. It's all the same, seems to be the same mentality of the younger generation of patrol officers, is that they don't want to do anything. It's weird. They say that, I was talking with a friend from Kings County up in Washington who's on the SWAT team up there, and he's like, we're getting zero interest in the SWAT team. But everyone wants to do recruiting and backgrounds. All these young guys, they've been on the road for a year or 2 years, and they're like, I want to go to recruiting. I want to go to backgrounds. And our list for full-time will be 5 guys. 5 guys applied, 3 guys passed. Recruiting of 20 guys 20 guys tested, 20 guys made it. And so we're like, really?
What's going on?
You want to go sit behind a podium at SHOT Show and be like, hey, you want to be a cop like me? Well, what do you know about being a cop? Well, I was hired last year. Okay. So, but that's a problem we're seeing, is that even when we do go try to recruit these people, the interest just isn't there to do this job. And of course, there are, the lower percentage people who we do find, and they end up becoming very, very good at that job. But back when I first came on RSO, there was 15, 20 people testing just for the reserve position. Now we'll be lucky if we get one person that tests for it. So, and that's a person that we had to go find, not that they were like, oh, I want to do this. And that's just not our department or just state. That seems to be a plague nationwide of just, I don't know what it is. But I'm glad to hear that it's not just our department.
So, okay, a couple of things come up for me here. So I wonder so in terms of volunteerism, that's pretty low. But there's still going to be guys out there that you can maybe go out and, potentially tap and recruit a little bit. I wonder, subjectively and objectively, what are the things that you're looking for from an officer that may make a good fit for the team based on what you can see in the field? Obviously, the true test is in the program, but
the first is judging the book by its cover. Unfortunately, they got to be at least look physically fit.
I don't think that's unfortunate at all. I think that should be a primary criteria.
Yeah, it's amazing on how many people will test for the program, not just with our department, but other programs, and can't pass the basic physical fitness standards.
Which is what? The Cooper standard? The 1.5 mile run,
so that's what we have for our post standards out here. 1.5 mile run, 300-meter sprint, push-ups, sit-ups, agility run, or something like that. we have that for our academy and our hiring process, but our SWAT team has its own physical fitness standards that involves a run, dummy drags, gas mask, pull-ups, ramming a door, picking up gear, running it around, getting up ladders, getting on top of stuff, shit like that. And it's amazing where they'll fail at the pull-ups. And it's like, we just want you just as an introductory to do 2 pull-ups.
Strength matters, man.
Just 2 pull-ups. We just want you to do 2. Just 2, please. Just 2. Like we change it now to 5 for our full-time guys. But just give us 2 pull-ups. That's it. And they
can't do it.
It's amazing how many people think that their neck actually gives them the strength to pull themselves up. So they're like, I'm almost there. And like, well, stop moving your neck and use your actual back or something like that.
Epileptic chicken.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, he's using his neck and that's not going to work. But that's the first thing that we're looking for is like, hey, are they physical fit? Then we're kind of getting a gauge on talking with their squad mates, with their supervisors. If they're coming out of the academy, like, hey, is this someone we need to watch? So we're talking with TAC staff supervisors, like, hey, how are they? Oh, he's a real arrogant piece of shit. Oh, okay, well, he's done.
Right.
Okay. He says he wants to come to SWAT, and he listens. He's not the brightest bulb in the batch, but he can be groomed. You're like, all right, cool. So maybe keep an eye on that. So we're looking for physical fitness. We're looking for being able to be coachable. How do you fit in a team setting when it comes to that as well?
Okay, so how do you evaluate that part? Sorry, I don't mean to.
Yeah.
How do you evaluate that part given they're not on the team yet?
So we evaluate based off of talking with their supervisors. How do they interact with their squad mates when they're on calls for service? Do they help out? Or are they the first to leave? Are they first to arrive?
Okay.
If there's like, hey man, can you go fill out this vehicle impound form for me? Be like, no, and they like just walk away or just do whatever. You're like, dude, he just needs a little help. Or the guys who won't jump hot calls, they'll sit there and be like, hey, this person's being stabbed at this intersection. And then it's just crickets. And then one person pipes up. Then all of a sudden, after that one person pipes up, because the first person who pipes up is the primary officer. Now they got to take the report, do the investigation. And then after that, all of a sudden, this person's available, that person's available. Like, you lazy motherfuckers. Like, I was actually doing something. And I was like, well, shit, I might as well clear this to go do that. Because apparently no one's available. And then as soon as so when I was on the road, if that happened, I heard that so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so was going. I said, hey, assign so-and-so as primary. So in dispatch, like, okay. And I was senior enough on the squad, and the sergeants understood it, that there was just no backlash from it. And that guy would get pissed off, like, you're a piece of shit, man. Like, you just like waited for me to take the paper. Like, I'm going to go help you out, but I'm not doing their paper now because obviously you were doing absolutely nothing. I was actually doing something. So we're looking for how they interact, with their squad, stuff like that.
That's so interesting. Like, because when I listen to that, I go, okay, so the subjective feedback that you're getting from people that they work around.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I would be doing if I was potentially recruiting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But none of what I heard you just say right there is actually cop stuff. Doesn't have anything to do with cops. It's fucking adult stuff. Like, show up on time, like participate when things are going on, like do your job, like that kind of shit. Like, just do basic adult behavior, and you're already kind of getting yourself down the road. But what I just heard you say is that's not as common as you might think it is.
Yeah, it's not. So
sorry.
No, you're good.
So I was going through that. So you give me the kind of subjective stuff, and then I asked you how you evaluate it, but there's other criteria. What's that?
And then just how they handle stressful situations. How do they handle these calls for service? How do they perform with a firearm? How do they perform defensive tactics? Are they actually doing something outside the department to make themselves better? That's skills. Like a huge thing. Like, skills can be learned and taught as well. Like, do you have the foundation that we can build upon? And usually that's someone who goes out on their off time and they're trying to put in a little extra firearm training. They're attending classes. They're going to a jiu-jitsu gym, a boxing gym. They're doing something. They're constantly working out. That's one thing that I say is that, especially when I teach the academy and when we're talking about like just working out, just get off tangent for a minute. Just working out, like, hey, how many people, attend a gym here? LVAC, 24-hour fitness, or any other gym in the Las Vegas area. And like, okay, do you consider that, training? Are you training? And they're like, yeah. How many people train for that fight that you're going to get in when you're on the road? And they're like, I do. Well, I go to the gym all the time. Okay, that's not training. That's conditioning your body, in my opinion. Yeah, it's just conditioning your body. Like, pushing 315 pounds on a bench press is great, but you can't move a 120-pound person who's fighting you off you because you have no skill set otherwise. So that's not training. That's just conditioning your body. Training is actually going to the range, going to classes, being a part of a jiu-jitsu gym, a boxing gym, where you have actual human contact, human resistance. That's training. So how many people do that? We're like,
Crickets.
no, nothing. So because, not because they're scared, I wouldn't say that, but they think that it's good enough and they'll rise to the occasion. And
when the thing happens.
And that's something that we talk about later, but these cops don't rise to the occasion, but fortunately they do survive these encounters.
Nothing bad happened, right?
And all it does is reinforce
it's okay to
the
be
bad
okay.
behavior.
It's okay to be.
I told you I was fine. I didn't need to pass that call. I shot just fine. Well, okay, you hit him 4 out of 12 times.
The lowest metric possible, and you came out and you're counting that as a win.
Yeah, and it's a win. I'm super glad you're okay. Yeah. Super glad, but it just reinforces the bad behavior. But so we're looking for someone who we can build upon. So physical fitness, firearms, they got a good head on their shoulders. Are they coachable? Do they do something that's showing that they want to improve themselves? And that's kind of like an ideal, like when we put all these, ingredients together for this perfect recipe of a SWAT candidate. It doesn't have to be a SWAT candidate. I think that should be for police officer candidate.
I was about to say exactly the same thing.
So yeah, it's amazing that, it's like some people are like, oh, hey, you talk to guys in the academy, like, hey, what'd you do before this? Well, I was working at Starbucks and then I decided, I want to try this cop thing out. All right, well, I hope it works out, but that's kind of not the mentality. Like I wanted to be a cop since the 80s when I saw Ghostbusters. That's the movie that made me want to be a cop. So like, who are you going to call? Like, I want them to call me.
Right.
I want them to call me to help them out. I always loved helping people. And so I always pushed myself to stay, physically fit, stayed active through high school, through college, played sports in high school and in college. And then at first I lost my mind. I thought I wanted to go to the FBI. I was like, oh, FBI is big. Yeah, I thought when I was in college, like I want to go to the FBI. And I was like, I need a college degree. So I was really hell-bent on finishing UNLV. And then I had to get a job. And I was like, well, let me get a job with the police department. It'll be a stepping stone. Yeah. I remember I told the chief at the time that, hey, you're like, here. I'm like, I'm just getting a stepping stone until I finish my degree. And then I'm going to go federal. He goes, you won't do that. He's like, you won't leave here. He's like, that'll be the biggest mistake you make. And that dude was 100% correct. If I did it out, me leaving to go be a Fed right now, and I'm really good friends with the FBI SWAT team out here. Great group of guys, but they even joke with themselves like we're fucking nothing. We don't like we're bound by Big Brother, HRT, and everything else up in Quantico and everything else, and phenomenal guys. But they're like, I'm just a Fed. It doesn't mean anything. It's like people hate us more than they hate you. So I'm like, all right,
it's a different dress code and probably less cool stuff.
Yeah,
on a daily basis. So let's go back to like the recruiting thing too. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned just. You don't know what it is kind of how you described it, but we just don't have the candidates. Mm-hmm. People aren't even volunteering for this. And I think what I picked up there is just a bit more apathetic, right? That, people may be a little bit more apathetic. Maybe that's not fair. I don't know. But I guess the question in this is this the chicken or the egg in the recruiting process? So we've hired these people in, right, that were just kind of the way I just maybe described. I was paraphrasing, so that was not exactly what you said. And then they were on for a year or two, and then all of a sudden now that's the recruiter.
Yeah.
So we're recruiting the same people that, you know, are that person, or is it something else?
I don't know. I sometimes this isn't everybody. It's just it's the bad cops that give cops a bad name. It's the out of shape people. It's the people who you see do stupid shit on YouTube and everything else with body cam footage. It's the sloppy ass recruiter you see sitting behind there. It's them who gives the aura, the perception of just law enforcement in general. And that's not just everyone, but those people, I feel they just want to play dress up. They want to be looked at as this big bad authority figure, but really when shit hits the fan, like they will get behind someone who actually knows what they're doing. And then all of a sudden they'll come out on top like, yeah, that's right. We did this. Yeah. And be like, you were hiding behind the couch the entire time. What do you mean we did this? But so, yeah, I mean, it could be that, but God, I really don't know. It could be a generational thing, but then I feel like I'm old when I say that because I heard my grandfather and kids these days, and I'm like, oh, these. I think we grew up just fine.
Right.
Now, am I saying that about my kids' generation or teenagers now? And will they come out just fine? I don't know, but
what is just fine? Right?
Yeah, what is just fine? I really don't know. It could be, it could just be the people who you're hiring. Attracting the wrong people, recruit. I don't know. I don't work that. I don't want to work that. But and even if I was assigned to that, I don't know the answer to the problem.
So I think that's a great answer. I mean, and I think that a lot of people are coming up with that exact same answer. Like, I can't quite put my finger on it. I think it's easy to target certain things, like say something broad spectrum, like, oh, this younger generation is just different, or you know, whatever. But the reality of it is, I don't think really anybody has an answer for that. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I don't know. Maybe Richie's got the magic formula.
Maybe we're just too hard on him. Maybe because, you know, I look back when I first started and I was a young kid, you know, and you know, I was very successful early on in my career. I was a young FTO. You know, you had to be 3 years on to become an FTO. And I was like, I want to be an FTO. So I was 24 years old trying to tell these guys how to work the road. But I've been on the road 3 years, you know, been through a lot of stuff. High volume area. So I'm doing that. But a lot of guys come out of the academy who were older than me had a problem with that. Like, this 24-year-old kid telling me what to do. And honestly, I was a dick. So because that's the way that I was brought up through our field training process as well. And I thought that was the way to be.
That's relative then.
But that was good because at the time, the academy was meant for you to pass. Field training was meant for you to fail, for the purpose of, if you can get through our field training process, then we know that you can be on your own in the street, no problem to handle yourself. If you can deal with our FTOs and their criteria for you and their standards, working in our city with our calls for service, then we know that if you can pass that, then you can be day one on your own. As soon as you're done field training, we'll have nothing to worry about.
So that's a cultural thing. That's almost like an attitude. And it's certainly going to be planned. That, right? There are certain things that happen, certain things that need to get done. And I would imagine like an FDO goes, here's my checklist of things I need this person to get themselves involved in. And I'm going to throw some monkeys into that wrench a few times too, and try to trip them up. Not in a negative way. They're here to help them. But these are things this person has to be able to do. And I guess the way I would think about it is, I can't confidently walk away and sleep at night knowing that I put somebody on the street that wasn't fully prepared for the job.
Right. Absolutely.
That to me is a culture thing, right? And again, there's some amount of execution of a process in that, but versus the attitude that you've gone through the academy and you're good to, every department's got an FTO program.
Yeah.
But the academy in and of itself is a minimum qualification to then basically try to do the job. And then after that, you know, we'll decide whether or not you can be here or not. Now that's not unstandard, correct? I mean, across the board, that's what you do. Go to the academy, go to FTO. It's what's happening in that FTO program, right? And what kind of human you're dealing with, and how many butts do you have to put in the seat? Like, how many pairs of boots do you have to fill, right? And so I think what I kind of heard you allude to there is like, are we lowering the standard within these programs, which is then obviously lowering the quality of the officer that comes out on the street.
I think so too. And I can't blame admin or the city for doing that, because they need to fill those spots. And it's not like we need to have officers out there, whether they meet just the minimum standard, that's good enough. We need you out there. If it's just good enough to shag cold call reports or just be a presence, that's fine. But unfortunately, it's not good enough when that person is in a oh shit situation and they end up getting themselves hurt or doing something that costs the department money or the city money because of a bad decision that they made or something like that. But, you know, worst off getting themselves hurt, because that's just, you know, the ultimate worst. But like I said, I see it from both sides. I see it from like, hey, we need to improve standards. But then like, if this is all we have, we just can't roll with X amount of cops, because you're not going to have a backup. You know, you're not going to have this. You're not going to have a SWAT team. You're not going to have a detective bureau. Everyone's just kind of going to just be a small department thing for a city of, you know, millions of people. And we're like, well, we need these guys to fill these spots so people can get promoted to supervisor's position. These people that are shining stars can move on to SWAT, narcotics, canine, gangs, whatever it may be. But if there's no one to fill their spots in the patrol car, because that's the life and blood of the department, if you don't have the patrol cars out there, then you don't get cases. You don't get calls for service. The detectives can't work because they don't have a case to go off of. SWAT doesn't get search warrants to serve or arrest warrants to serve. So someone has to be doing that job, and that's where I understand, like,
it's a tough spot.
Yeah, good enough has to be good enough right now, and we can't just put a flag in the ground and be like, this is the standard, and because now all of a sudden an academy of 50 people, and then by the time the academy graduates, that goes down to 30 because 20 got flushed out in the academy. And then you have this strict field training process. Now you're 30 people in field training. 6 months later, after field training's done, we have 5 people left over. You're like,
is that pretty accurate?
That can be, yeah. So the number's a little inflated, just
I got you. That's why I'm checking in.
Yeah. So like, you can have like I said, you can have at least a 10 to 20% drop rate in the academy within the first few weeks because these people that come in like, I was not expecting this. Like, this guy's yelling at me. Like, he's in my face. Like, where I'm not, my parents said that this is unnecessary. We need to talk this out.
Laughing out loud. Yeah.
And, so, they've told that that's fine. They're just not cut out for the job. And I'm glad that they realize it there.
Sure.
And, a year from later when they have some dude in their face who's trying to kill them. And you're like, oh.
But Richie, here's my thing though. Like, what did they expect? And whose responsibility is that, right? How much is on the recruit or the candidate, and how much is on the recruiter / agency for not setting that expectation appropriately in the first place? Like, what did they think they were going to do? What were the motivations, right? Why does this person have such a disconnect between what the reality of this is with all the information that's out there, right? I think, like, are we protecting them from the reality? Should we be talking about this more instead of a lot of talk about law enforcement on the interwebs, right? Whether it's on social media or anywhere else. My point of this is like, how do we paint or portray a more clear picture of what this is in a good way? Right? And I don't mean like to bias it, one way or another, but in a good way, a clear picture of what law enforcement really is for folks, so that you don't start with an academy of 50 and a week in, you're down 20 people. That's what I heard you say. The math worked out to be, and again, you said this isn't all the time. You started with 50 and you ended up with 5. Talk about a fucking waste of time and money, right?
Yeah, because they're paid.
Where's the breakdown, right? And whose responsibility is it for the breakdown? We're not going to come up with all those answers today. But obviously you do that enough times, right? And you get down the path, and here we are, right? Nationally, as with law enforcement officers,
right.
And everybody, you said it, everybody is dealing with the exact same thing.
Exact same thing. We were with LAPD a couple months ago as well with their SWAT team, and they're running the same thing. Obviously at higher numbers, like, hey, we start with an academy of 300 and we graduate with 125. You're like, that's over 50% drop rate, just from the academy. And I know our academy, they do a really good job. They're really realistic and they're really strict on them to be like, hey, this is real life shit that you guys are going to be getting a part of. And then I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the
well, it's a natural part of the process for sure.
Right.
That attrition that's what what's supposed to happen.
It's built to be that way.
Exactly, 100%.
But then I don't know what the recruits think is like, oh, it's not as bad as they think. We'll be fine. That I see red syndrome, to where I'm a gamer. When shit hits the fan, I'm gonna produce. I'm gonna be a gamer. I'm gonna be on the top of my game. And they get out there and they realize that they're not. And they're like, this isn't for me. This isn't for me at all. I remember when I came through the academy, we had a guy who was really squared away in the academy, really, really squared away dude, did everything great in shape, great shooter, did the practical scenarios great. And the first weekend, he came in, he quit. And he's like, this is not for me. I don't like this. And I was like, got to respect you for it. I mean, you're great. You're a great candidate. It's just, but he realized the realness of the job day one, to where like, this isn't a role player. This is a real person who's really pissed at me. And it's not like I have anyone to help me. And he's like, I don't like this at all. I'm like, I'm sorry, I guess it's just not for you. And, good luck on whatever it is that you do. But, maybe people just realize that too late. And they're just into it too deep.
They feel stuck.
Yeah. And some people, they feel that way, but they slip through the cracks. They just kind of coast through. They slip through the cracks. They do good enough. And then all of a sudden they're on their own. And then for some departments, those people become supervisors. And then all of a sudden you're like, that guy's a supervisor. That girl's a supervisor. Oh my God. What's going on with that? And all of a sudden it just snowballs into something major, unfortunately.
Yeah. I appreciate you talking through there, because a lot of that is a very, very similar conversation that I've had with so many guys that do what you do. But there's some other stuff in there, like the RSO program.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mixed that acronym up. That I think is valuable for me to learn, just in talking with other guys, to maybe dig a little deeper on some other questions. But again, we're in a place right now, right? And I feel this as a citizen every day. I mean, you mentioned something about that's not good. I'll do the same in about 2 minutes here.
Water.
You've done that.
Fiji water.
I will want the cop on the street that the person I want is the guy that's out there training, that's physically fit. Like, that's what I value.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I want a guy. I want an officer that can handle themselves physically, has a presence when they show up, has a confidence when they show up, and has some very specific skills, right? And I don't mean tools. Everybody carries similar tools, not the tools, the skills to be able to use those tools and know how to, there it is. Knows how to use those skills and those tools appropriately in a certain way when the time comes. Like if my mom has to call 911.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the cop I want showing up, right?
That's what everyone wants.
Yeah, I think they do. That's just it. But nobody's really addressing that. And here's what I mean by nobody. Like that's what I value as a citizen. So then when I ask police officers or I ask administration or I ask a city official, what do you value in your police officers? And it goes to things like metrics. Crime is down. Like there's less vehicle accidents. We have less officers injured, those kind of things. Those are all good things. But what's creating that? Like, and what are we valuing and how are we putting time or energy into those things that we value in order to make those things happen? And there's never a good answer for that. And so, again, like the recruitment process and things like that, I ask the questions is they're like, what are the solutions? Because I'm hoping one day I'm going to sit down in front of somebody and they're going to give me the roadmap and then we're going to be able to share it with the world, right? And then everybody's going to just go back to work and we're going to flip a switch on one day and it's all going to change. It certainly isn't. And because that's not reality, it creates, it's damaging, right? To cultures in communities and careers and all kinds of stuff as people are getting frustrated or whatever and they're bailing out. I guess my point in saying all that is just kind of finding some solutions. I think just the way you described the RSO program and not like how it works, mechanically, but the things that are inside it and the people that are responsible for it, I think make the biggest difference. And if you've come up that way, right, and the standard has remained the same, and standards is a broad term, but people understand, I think it's probably linked to more values and obviously specific metrics of things that need to be measured. And that's clearly defined. It gets a lot fucking easier. And I don't think that's very clearly defined in a lot of cases, hence attrition rates, hence I had no idea this is what this was, and I'm done in week one. It's disappointing. Again, that's what this process has always been. It's what it will always be. That's what it's supposed to be. But at the same time, with the numbers, like numbers are important. Math is important here. And how do we, aside from just managing the number, the outcome, how do we manage the process? So thanks for walking me through all that, man. Let's just talk about like work in general, right? Just like give us some idea of like how busy you are. Like, what are we doing in terms of call outs a year, or call outs a week, or call outs a day, or ops a day, ops a week, ops a year, that kind of stuff. What does life on the job look like for you, man?
So life on the job is it's very fortunate for us because if we're not on an operation, then we're doing paperwork. If we're not on an operation or doing paperwork, then we're training. And if we're not training, then we're recuperating, resting for that next op type thing. So day-to-day operations could be something as easy as, hey, we're gonna have a team workout. We have to scout out X amount of properties for this week. So we have 3 search warrants this week that we have on this day, that day, and that day. We'll send out scout teams. We'll go scout them out. We'll make the plans. We'll do all the paperwork. So we do everything in-house. So we'll go get our photos, go get our videos, do our intel in the house. We'll do our draws. We'll do our walkthroughs. We'll scheme it all up. And that takes up a majority of the day. If that takes up, 2 days or whatnot, then it takes up 2 days. Then we go serve the search warrant, come back, you do the paperwork on it. And then usually when you're done, go work out, go train, go whatever it is that you need to do. So it's kind of just a revolving cycle of operations, planning, paperwork, and training. Operations, planning, paperwork, and training. Operations, paperwork, planning, and training. And then as that's going, like, oh, stop that wheel. We have a call out. So now go over there, planning, operation. Right. Now come back, do paperwork, planning, operation. Now the call out. Okay, plan, operation, come back, do the paperwork,
call
train,
out again.
Call it, and then so it's just that revolving, wheel of what I just said. But everyone has a job on the team to make that wheel run as efficiently as possible. We have guys who are in charge, guys on the team who are in charge of our vehicles. Be like, hey, Make sure our vehicles are, when it's time for like oil changes and smog checks and stuff, we make sure that they're all up to date on service. There's someone in charge of that.
Sounds sexy.
It's a beginning guy job. So I had it, make sure that all these raid plan files are scanned and filed away in case we got to access them in the archives or whatnot. And that was my job too. It's another beginning guy's job. Okay, make sure that these RSOs are trained up and coordinated. Who's with us this week? Who's with us next week? Who's available for call outs? We have guys who are in charge of that. Okay, we have a guy who's in charge of team training. Okay, I used to have that job too before I became the ATO. Like, okay, what training are we doing for the team this week, next week? What time do we have to be there? Where do we need to be? Who do we need to coordinate with? Do we need role players? What equipment? What ammo? So on and so forth. We have a guy who's in charge of ammo. Make sure we have our ammo inventory of duty ammo, practice ammo, less lethal stuff. We have less lethal guys. We have inventory guys who make sure that we have the gear and equipment. So all this stuff is everyone's doing something. And it's kind of said that if during the day, if you're kind of found not doing nothing, then you're not doing your job. So like there's always something to do. And so that's just like that revolving wheel, because making our team very self-sufficient. Like we do everything ourselves. It's almost like you're in a completely different department, which is great. We have our commander there, which is our lieutenant. We have our sergeants. We have our operators. We're in our own separate off-site building away from everybody else. We do our thing. And then we show up to area commands to help out with training, with recruiting, with briefings or whatnot, go to the range, help out, go to the academy, help out. So we sprinkle our face in there every now and then, because I think going back to the SWAT thing as far as recruiting, I think a lot of the stigma around SWAT is like, don't approach those guys. They're scary and intimidating. But really, like, we're the nicest, most joking people that you'll ever meet on the department. And that's why we're like, hey, get out there and let them know, show your face that, hey, you can come talk with us. If you need us to, put on training for your squad, let us know. So that's kind of like a day in the life of a SWAT operator. Not to mention that we're on call 24/7. And so with that revolving training, paperwork, operations, call outs wheel that's going on, now we mix into that wheel. Okay, I'm married. I have kids. I have home responsibilities. I have this. I got to get to the gyms to work out. Now I got to get to jujitsu to do jujitsu class. I got to get to the range on my own to keep my own fit. So you're mixing in all this stuff, and everyone's like, well, where do you have time to do all this stuff? And they're like, you do all that and you run your own tactical company where you travel and train. How do you do it? And I said, I have no idea. Only thing I can thank is my wife for giving me the time to allow to do it. So, so that's kind of like in my world, that's everything of being on the phone 24/7, and then being on the other phone, answering raw tactics calls and planning and scheduling that out, and then getting to the range and teaching classes, getting adjunct instructors, scheduling flights, renting cars, booking hotels in different cities. Talk about this tactical conference wants us to teach at their conference this year. Okay, let's book that out. Oh, call out. Okay, let me put that aside because that's my secondary job. This is primary. Okay, let's deal with that. Okay, now let's address this again. And for me, it's just motivation, because that's something I want to do. So I think I do a good job. I think I do a good job. I think I do a good job at it personally. But because I want to. That's my motivation, is to be the best person to show up, whether I'm in a blue uniform, a green uniform, patrol car, or Bearcat, to where your mom calls, you call. I can give you the best version of myself to you day in and day out. Not only to help you, because I'm there to help you, but I'm there to help me also, because I'm responsible to go home to my family as well. So that's where my motivation is. So that's kind of a long answer to, day in a life of, SWAT, of what the team does, and then what I do as well.
So basically you sit around in the gym all day and wait till you get called out, is what I heard you say. No.
Pretty much,
yeah, right.
So it's or go walk around SHOT Show until you get called out, yeah. And then
so the reason I sit. First off, thanks for walking through that, because I've actually never heard anybody go through all that detail before, and hopefully people listening are like, whether they're outside of law enforcement or inside of law enforcement, get a little bit better perspective of what might actually be going on over there when you pass those guys in the hallway or whatever else, or see them on TV, or
I always tell them, I always say to people, I'm like, be your own motivation. Don't look to me. Don't look to these guys for motive. Like, be your own motivation. Like, let's learn. Let's start instilling empowerment from within. Not, I want to be like Richie. I want to be like Scott. I want to be like that guy. I want to be like me. I want to make my own person. You show me the map of how to be a SWAT operator. You know what? Thank you very much. I'm going to draw my own map. type thing. And, I want to be my own motivation, be your own motivation. Hopefully what we say can help them out, but deep down, you're never going to be me. I'm never going to be you. You got to be yourself, and you got to motivate yourself in order to do this and find your why. And then if you can find your why, if you're listening to this, then you're going to be 100%. You're no problem doing anything you want to do in your life.
Right. So it's not just for the tight t-shirts and the cool gear. Right.
Some people think it's that, but our t-shirts are extra tight. So
obviously I'm being facetious right here, but I guess my point is just I think you just gave a really cool outline of the realities of what the position is. Maybe it's not like that everywhere. I mean, this is a one sample set, right? Or whatever, but I don't believe that's really what it is. I think you probably did a pretty good job given the some of my friends and what they do and what they've shared with me. That was great. There's a lot of detail in that, and I think that's important because going back to we're recruiting people that have no idea what the job was. Rewind the tape. Listen to what he just fucking said, right? That's what the job is. You just heard the job, right? And you also heard all the things you have to balance around that, including raw tactics, which I want to jump into next.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's the question. How the hell are you doing all that? And but seriously, let's talk about it. Talk about raw tactics and where it came from and what you're doing.
So raw tactics developed this in 2019. Just kind of was hit and miss with it up until about 2 years ago when I kind of was like, hey, I'm getting kind of close to retirement. Let's start actually pushing this boulder up the hill and see what we can actually do with this company.
What motivated that though?
So I've always been involved. I've been boxing my entire life. Me getting into jiu-jitsu is a different story, but I got into jiu-jitsu to where now I'm a 2-stripe brown belt under Gracie, who might have gym out here with Professor Mika and Gracie affiliate. And so a detective at the time, he was a black belt in jiu-jitsu and in judo, and we would teach defensive tactics together for the department. And he had a friend who was in real estate who said, hey, can you bring someone with you and just give our agents kind of like a free self-defense seminar when they're showing open houses and whatnot? So he was like, hey, Richie, do you want to go with me to this? I was like, yeah, let's go do it. So we do it, and it's a fucking smash. It's a success, hit. And everyone's like, oh, where do we reach you guys at? Where do we reach you guys at? And they're like,
you didn't think about
nowhere.
that.
Like, we're just doing this. And like, oh, you guys should definitely do this. And I was like, hey, I was like, what do you think about starting a company and doing this? Like, a defensive tactics type program for not only law enforcement, but for civilians and everything else. And he goes, yeah, I like it. He really wasn't on board as much as I was, but we were coming up with stuff. My name's Richie. His name was Alan. So I was like, how about, Richie Allen tactics, stupid, raw, Richie R-A, raw tactics. Yeah, raw tactics. Let's do raw tactics. Not like R-A-W, but R-A like you're getting raw material, like you're getting like it's straight from the source type thing.
Okay.
And he was just like, yeah, I don't want to do it. And I was like, fuck it, I want to fucking do it. So, and then, so I was like, but I'm not going to focus on that. So I'm going to focus on skill set to where you're getting raw material straight from the source. Me being active law enforcement, being active on a SWAT team. Like, I'm not going to show you exactly what our tactics are, but I'm going to show you how to defend yourself. I'm going to show you how to use a gun.
Fundamentals.
Whether it's civilian or law enforcement. I'm going to show you how to use a gun. I'm going to show you for the people who want to learn how to clear rooms. I'm going to show you a basic way to clear rooms. If you want to be a responsibly armed citizen that responds to an active shooter event, how to safely do that. So just stuff like that. And I just kind of just ran with it at that point. And luckily, knock on wood so far, I've been pretty successful with it to the point to where tactical conferences, Ohio Tactical Officers Association, Kentucky Tactical Officers Association, Indiana Tactical Officers Association. Hopefully getting hooked up soon with Texas and Louisiana and Michigan for their Tactical Officers Association. But they're contacting me like, hey, can you come teach at our tactical seminars? And I was like, yeah, that's phenomenal.
That's the thing. People do this?
Yeah. I was like, I want to do that. And so go out and taught some handgun courses and taught some high-risk search warrant preparation execution courses to some teams, out in Ohio and Kentucky and stuff like that as well. Indiana. That's a very, very popular course that we teach for law enforcement only that attend those seminars. But just balancing that out on top of doing like, hey, can I just get a one-on-one session with you to teach me how to shoot a handgun, teach me how to shoot a rifle? Yeah, we can do that too. And then now that is getting booked up so much where I'm like, hey, you got to go on a waiting list unless you want to go with a different instructor.
Right on.
And they're like, no, I'll wait. And I'm like, all right, thank you. You want to shoot with me and train with me. But I think a lot of my instructing ability and my shooting ability from the first time I was at the OTOA, Ohio Tactical Officers Association. I was teaching out there, and then on my last day, I was like, let's see what this Modern Samurai Project stuff's like. And so that's where I met Scott Jedlinski, and I shot really well in his class and did really well, and we just kind of took a friendship to each other. And now he has me AI informed for his classes.
I didn't realize that.
And yeah, so I'm an endorsed instructor from Modern Samurai Project. So
man, I just had Scott sitting in that chair yesterday.
So yep, I was talking with him at the Hot Munitions booth the other day, and he was like, "Hey, you're going on Iron Sights, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I'm getting up there too."
It took us too long to get him done, man. We wanted to do that a long time ago.
So Scott's a great dude. He's if I consider a firearms coach, he is my firearms coach. I've learned a lot from him, from not only the shooting side but the instruction side. And so it's great to have him as a mentor for that. And I was a really good shooter, and then I was just kind of plateaued, and then I took his class and kind of opened my brain to a couple things, and then I just kind of skyrocketed in my own personal abilities as well as instructing ability. And now I'm back at the point where I'm like, all right, I need to keep this up, because you're never at the top of that mountain of training. So I'm like, all right, I'm at the point now to be like, okay, I need a little bit more. So now I'm trying to be like, hey, I'm just going to attend your class just to attend it. I don't want to AI, I just want to be a student or whatnot. And
smart.
So Scott, that's how I got introduced to Scott, was having the OTOA reach out and be like, hey, do you want to come teach at our conference? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, hey, when you're done, you can take whatever class you want. Like, for a lot of good things about this, let me take that. And I was hooked ever since on that. So, so doing the firearm stuff and the SWAT stuff and the raw tactics it's taxing, but it's all going to have it's all being done for a reason. So when I do retire from law enforcement, raw tactics will be my full-time job.
Gotcha.
And then I can give that full steam ahead and just keep these dates now that I can't, do to obligate. I can't, attend because of my real job is all open now. So
funny you said like, real job.
Yes.
I got it. That's the thing too, actually, just that phrase, a real job,
Mm-hmm.
It is a real job, man. I mean, they're both real jobs, right? And you're talking about earning a living from that job, raw tactics, when the current job that you have goes on. But I think people look at it like that too. It's kind of like what I think I do at work, or what I think I look like at work, or what my mom thinks
those
like
memes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, that kind of thing, when people look at firearms instruction or whatever instruction, but when you're getting a coach, you're getting an instructor to get things from, they don't understand that it is a real job. Like you're talking about Scott, who teaches 100 and however many freaking classes a year. That's how he earns a living, right?
It's tedious.
It's a business, right? There's a lot of things that go into running a business. We actually talked through some of those things yesterday. But the point of that is the outside perception, of what that is. And sometimes if you say that, then that's what the consumer is going to say. If you're calling it's not a big boy job, that's what I'm going to say. So I'm going to encourage you not to say that anymore. I got that as a fitness coach. I remember I started my own business after being in the business for a long, long time. And I was right at the beginning stages, and it was humbling to do that. But as people were coming in, I remember this one lady, she's tying her shoes, she'd changed out of her work clothes, and she's jumping into a little session that I had for a couple of other ladies, and this was her first time. So she's lacing up, and she looks up at me after I'd worked 10 hours already that day. I started at like 4 a.m, right? It's like whatever it is, 3 p.m. or something like that. I had like a 1 hour lunch. Going. And she looks up at me. She goes, "So what do you do for a real job?" And I go, "You motherfucker."
Lady.
Yeah. So, but that's the perception, right? Yeah. That's the perception. Like, how can people make a living on this or whatnot? I would ask you about that, but I'm afraid you'd probably give away the entire business plan. And on that, in this particular genre, I think people need to figure that shit out on their own.
Yeah.
Or go to a person who has a big boy job doing this, spend the time, the money, the energy, and give them the respect that they deserve to help you to learn from that. Not give it to you, to learn from that. I know that's how Scott operates too.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so full blown instruction business.
Yeah.
Full time leader on a SWAT team, and so you have a lot of perspective here, like from coming from working with citizens, working with law enforcement. being in a leadership position, all the experiences that I'm sure that both jobs have provided you over time, and you're doing work, all of that work in an area that has lots and lots of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very metropolitan, in that sense. And so you have probably a unique perspective on the questions I wanted to get into with you, just with regard to some of the recent current events we've had, right? So we're in Las Vegas for SHOT Show right now. You've got, recently we had the, I don't know, I've hesitated to say this is more like a truck fire, but it was truck bombing over at Trump, at the Trump Hotel. Previous to that, only a day or two, that was what happened in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And with that kind of stuff. But these are not like isolated incidents that only happen on occasion. This type of stuff happens when we talk active shooter, or active assailant, whatever the politically correct term is, and however that people are getting stabbed in mass, right? People are getting shot in mass. They're being run over in mass. There are bombs going up. I mean, in Las Vegas here, only, what is it, 3 years ago now, October 1,
Mm-hmm.
we had that situation. Is that
8 years ago?
Is it 8? God,
2017. Okay. Yeah.
Wow, it was that long ago?
Yeah. So,
bro, like the time has flown by. I'm sitting
yeah. So if you say 3, it sounds right, but then when you think about it, I'm like, okay, and I was like, is it 3 on October 2017, 2025? Let's carry the 9. Yeah, it's 8 years. So
my daughter was at the concert in our hometown the weekend before that.
Okay.
So that really hit home when that happened. Now you're saying it, I'm like, holy God, it was 8 years ago. Okay. So 8 years ago, those types of things are not, they're regular stuff. We have things like, so I live in Santa Clara County, and the Super Bowl's coming there, right? And it's been there before. Oftentimes I live in the Silicon Valley, so we get visits from dignitaries.
Yeah.
Right. And my point of this is this is something that we should be thinking about. I don't think a lot of people think about it until the thing actually happens. And then they start to discover things for a little bit, but the questions come out like, how could this happen? Like, how could, and they want to point fingers. Somebody has to be blamed for this outside of the person that actually did the thing. What are all the things that went wrong, right? And then there's a lot of times getting out in front of it by, the media there, because they got to have the sexy story to post up on the thing, right? Or put on the TV. And then you have maybe a law enforcement agency or city who's trying to get out in front of it. And maybe they say things they shouldn't say, or, it didn't happen this way. And then something else happens and it kind of gets ignored. And then they have to come back and tell you what happened. But that sometimes doesn't happen for months. And my point of that is nobody really knows. Like, what is really going on in the background, and what are some of the safeguards that are out there? What do people need to know about these things to protect themselves better, but also initiate some change where change needs to happen, right? To protect people more. So again, I think you've got some experience here, and I'll start asking the question and that is, in terms of what you think people's perceptions are of how they're being protected in these soft target, high populated type events, sports events, concert events. I mean, again, we're at SHOT Show, that kind of thing. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people here. What do you think, the basic citizen thinks about all that?
I think the basic citizen honestly probably doesn't think about it too much.
Okay.
I think that they are just under this spell, this guise of everything's okay. Kind of like, the Matrix, like everything is fine until you actually realize like what's going on behind the scenes. Like, being in law enforcement or not even law enforcement. Like before law enforcement, I used to be a food runner for a high-end restaurant here in town. And I had no idea about anything about the food industry until I stepped behind the curtain and saw what was going on inside the kitchen. I was like, this is fucking disgusting.
Wild back there.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was like, oh my God.
I did the same.
And so the same thing for, but you're sitting in the restaurant, everything is, oh, honey, look how great this is. This is great. The food's so
delicious.
Great. Yeah. Did you try these fries? But yeah, so did I before I brought your fucking food out. Okay. So when I was waiting for your food, I was eating off your plate, your French fries. So I'm fucking starving. I hadn't had lunch in 5 hours.
Never eating out again.
So yeah. And, but so people, when ignorance is bliss type thing to where they don't know what's going on. So they really think that everything is fine. But then there are some people who probably do think like, hey, I need to protect myself type thing for these events. And But for the overall general public, I don't think they really think about it until something happens.
So this validates my point.
Yeah, like until it happens. And then when it happens, like, where were you? How come you didn't stop this from happening? You should have done this. And we're like, well, yeah, we could have, would have, should have. Everything is, unfortunately, for mass events like that, everything is unfortunately reactive
right?
And in law enforcement, especially with training. For example, 1 October was, a lot of agencies. Active shooter has been a term, or active assailant has been a term since Columbine. Okay, that is the birth of the active shooter event, to where patrol's not going to wait for SWAT anymore. Patrol or any armed person, security, whatnot, is going to go in and stop the threat prior to SWAT arriving. So that kind of started this whole, active shooter type mentality, to where I completely lost my train of thought.
No, I'm with you. I'm staying with you here. So let me pick it back up.
Yeah.
So I think where we're going is you got this citizen who doesn't understand that we learn things in real time, right? Or after.
That's what I was going. Yes. Okay. So so law enforcement agencies have been training active shooter for years, and departments have gotten really, really, really good at it. Like, especially here in Nevada and in the Las Vegas area.
Is that right?
These cops out here, they are fucking studs when it comes to active shooter response. Like, they will throw on the vest and they will go in. There's going to be no cops out here standing by a patrol car waiting for out of the
Uvalde.
Yeah, exactly. They are going to go in, and I know that firsthand based off of helping train these academies and service stuff with numerous departments, being a part of joint agency trainings where we see these guys and these girls, they go in the training situations. Yep. But I have all the faith in the world that law enforcement out here is going to do their job for that. So we do a really, really good job for that. And then some guy's an active shooter from 30 floors up. And you're like, ooh, I never trained for that. How the hell do we deal with this? So now training for reactive training for it is adjusted, to where it's like, okay, well, how do we deal with a high-angled shooter? So now SWAT teams are dealing with that more. You're getting more of an aerial platform of shooting from a helicopter type thing for SWAT teams and stuff. Out here in Las Vegas, unfortunately, we have mountains, so we can train that. Put steel targets up in mountains that that we can hit and think
at distance,
at distance and whatnot, and shooting down from mountains in case you're up and you need to shoot down. So lots of good training has come from that, but unfortunately, it's like, too little, too late, until something else happens that hasn't been tested. To like, okay, well, what do you do if X, Y, and Z happens? You're like, you stick to the core principles of active shooters. You stop the threat, however that may be, whether on the 3rd floor, 30th floor, 50th floor, on top of the mountain, shooting repellers, whatever it may be. Get to the threat and stop the threat. So, but that's reactive training now, because we didn't train for that before, the 1 October thing.
Yeah. So it's like TSA 15 or it was 18, something like that years ago. Maybe it was a little bit longer now, because now I'm blown away because I said 3 years, and that sounds ridiculous, but because that would have been in the middle of that thing that went on. There weren't any concerts anyway 8 years ago. Whatever it was 18, 20 years ago, some dude tried to light his shoes on fire in an airplane.
Yes, I remember that.
And now the whole world has to take their fucking shoes off.
Yep.
Going through the security checkpoint for that reason. That was the thing. That was this is how we stop that threat. And then, you walk through metal detectors and whatever else, and the illusion that exists there based on that one incident, that one thing.
It's a lot of times there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to events, to where, oh my God, we had to do something. And you necessarily can't blame some of those people, because they're probably getting the words from higher ups as well, of getting the pressure from, city officials or something like that. And so to identify the problem and fix it, so what is the problem? Well, we didn't check his shoes. Okay, fix it. So well, I guess we have everyone take their shoes off now. Like, thanks a lot. You know? But, so that's what it is. And it's weird you talk about TSA, because obviously with Raw Tactics, I travel a lot, and being through numerous airports, it's weird how TSA is this one agency, but every airport has different standards. Like here, you have to do one thing. You got to strip butt naked here. But then if I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, there's like, oh, just come on through. You're fine. You don't have to take off your belt, your shoes. You want me to take my laptop out of my bag? No, leave it in the bag. Like, well, I just came from somewhere that told me to take it out of my bag, and you treated me like a terrorist because I left it in my bag. So now you want me to leave it in the bag? Are you sure? And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay.
So that's another reality that I think people can relate to when we're talking about the civilian side of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've been through that. So they understand there are inconsistencies everywhere. And to them, they're mildly inconvenienced and maybe a little bit emotionally butthurt by this thing. But the larger perspective is those inconsistencies, at what depths do they go and how broad is that? And shall we not even get started on checking a firearm at the counter when you go to get? I was got arrested about 6 months ago. And I lost my mind. Like, I can't. You're a fucking retard. I can't deal with you anymore. Like, whatever we got to do to get on this airplane, and I didn't. I missed my flight as a result. Anyways, so we should get started.
Yeah, I have to just for what my
let's go. All right, let's go. We're doing it.
Just a quick
we're going.
I was here. I was flying to Charlotte, North Carolina for a training class. And I was checking, it was on duty type training stuff. So I had my gun belt, everything. Everything was packed away exactly what it was supposed to be. I tell the agent at the ticketing, hey, I have a firearm in my backpack, or excuse me, in my suitcase. It's locked away. Everything.
It's unloaded.
It's unloaded. Everything. And they're like, you have a gun? And I say, yeah, it's in my suitcase. Like, you have a gun? And I say, in my suitcase, locked away. Terry, he has a gun. I'm not doing. I just literally stepped back and said, I said, it's in my suitcase.
Get me shot?
It's in my suitcase. Right. I put my hands up and everything. And then they're like, okay, settle down, blah, blah. You fill out this form. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I was sweating. I was
panic attack.
I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, this lady almost got me killed, from Metro cops coming all around. I'm like, oh my God. But so that was just the quick story on that.
I mean,
oh my God.
I think it paints a very real picture, because I could go through 5 of similar stories, right? And I know 50 guys that have 10 stories apiece or more themselves. They're traveling every weekend with stuff. And the point of this being is that there's this illusion that we have these agencies or we have these entities, and whether that's your municipal police department or a federal agency like the TSA, that are there to protect you, right? And that there's this highly trained, highly skilled, highly technological, advanced, system of things that keeps us from this danger. And the reality of it is that is not the case. And some places, just like anything, are going to do it way better than others, right? And so, again, just looking at it from like the civilian's perspective, I agree with you 100%. And again, I could give you 50 stories of how I know that when people are shocked, at what's gone on. Like, well, why wouldn't you expect that? Well, because these guys are here to do this thing and whatever else. So the next thing I would bring in then is like, okay, so what is the officers out there that are on the street? Now, you did a pretty good job of pumping up, but also describing, some of the very specific things that you guys do in order to prepare officers in your, in sort of Nevada, and how that works. But what do you think most officers' perception is or training level is for this type of stuff in other areas, given that you travel and teach other agencies? How does that look?
It's actually pretty bright, but then I can be biased because the people attending these classes are those motivated individuals. So that's the only people you're exposed to. Now, if a department invited me out and said, hey, we want you to teach this to all 300 of our officers, then you're going to see a full metric of, okay, those guys this group responded really good. This group is just a bunch of they
soup sandwiches.
Yeah, they cannot respond. For the love of God, just send them home. That'll be better type thing. But I don't get that, because the people who are at the classes, they want to be there. But law enforcement in general is the response, luckily for the civilian, the response is going to be the go-getters. It is going to be the guys who want to be there to help. The people who are slubs and soup sandwiches and whatnot, they're going to arrive, but they're going to arrive late. Like we talked about earlier with those call for services. Like, hey, what were you doing? You didn't
That's the guy.
That's the guy. But they probably won't be showing up first, probably, because they're definitely going to take their time, in my opinion. The go-getters, me, you, anyone else who's in law enforcement who wants to help, they're going to do everything they can to get there right now.
We saw that in Tennessee.
Yes, absolutely. So I was actually in Nashville over the summer, July, and I was out there and I was teaching out there in Nashville, and we were actually talking about that with the school church shooting and whatnot and everything else. But I mean, just for my experience on 1 October is I was sitting in bed and middle, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, we get the call out and it's active shooter at Mandalay Bay. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. Tell my wife. She's like, what's up? You going to work? I was like, yeah, it's an active shooter at Mandalay Bay. She's like, oh, be careful. And her phone's blowing up now. And her friends are asking her, hey, is Richie at Route 90? Is Richie at Route 91? And she was, and my wife asked me, are you going to Route 91? I said, what the fuck is Route 91? I'm going to Mandalay Bay. I didn't know that there was a concert or it was called Route 91 or anything else till after the fact. But I was like, I'm going to Mandalay Bay if that's what it is, but that's the only active shooter event that's here. So I'm thinking in my head, from where I live in the city to where Mandalay Bay is, even going lights and sirens, it's going to take me about 25 minutes to get there. So I'm thinking already in my head, okay, I'm still going as fast as I can, but by the time I get there, patrol officers or armed security should have this taken care of under control because they're fucking studs. Like they're going to go stop the threat. And then as I'm en route, I'm driving on the freeway, we're getting this intel that the guy is still alive. There are numerous casualties to include police officers, and this event's still going on. And I'm like, holy shit. But when I tell this story in the academy, I was like, what's fucked up in my brain, and hopefully what's fucked up in their brain when I tell them, is what did I do when I heard that information? I pushed that pedal harder to go even faster than I could to get there because I wanted to help. Other people, those non-go-getters, you don't have to worry about them arriving because what they're going to hit the brakes. Oh, this is too real life for me. I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna probably take my time to get there. And I just know that from experience from working patrol and knowing, I know where you were at when this call came out. How did I beat you here when you were around the corner? Type thing. So I know that the public can rest assured that the guys who are responding, they are going and they are going with a purpose.
There's a group of people in there.
Yes,
they're going to get there.
They're going to get there as fast as they can. That's not everybody. You may get the person who just happens to be there too. We're like, oh, hey, I'm eating lunch here, and an active shooter walks out. I'm like, well, fuck, that's the last cop I wanted to respond, but he's here. Hey, can you help us? Hopefully that person does snap into it and be like, yeah, I'm going to help you. And if and the worst thing happens and their training wasn't up to snuff and they end up, paying the ultimate sacrifice, and they're going to die a hero. Type thing, because they actually acted and they did what they were supposed to do. And that's what the training is that I try to provide with raw tactics, training that we provide as a SWAT team to our agency, and what I provide to other agencies and agencies not only in state here, but other agencies is, I want you to be the guy at the top of your game. I'm going to give you everything I know to make you do that. And that's why I love being an instructor, because I take it personally. Be like, I want you to leave fully prepared, so that I know that I did everything I could to make you prepared to go respond to that situation before you leave here. And that's where instructors, whether they're traveling instructors or in-service instructors or whatnot, where they kind of drop the buck to where, like, hey, we're here, let's get through this and kind of get through the day. And I'm like, that's just not me. So I'm going to give you everything I know, where that raw material, that raw tactics is going to be. Is like, you're going to get everything I know to make you better right now, not later, but right now.
It's interesting in hearing you talk like that. It's very familiar to me, because I have a lot of friends that are basically the same, cut from the same cloth, right?
Good.
Which is so positive, right? And they don't often get their messages out, but those are the guys that are showing up, and those are the guys that are. I have a good friend, actually. He's down in Arizona and teaches this very thing, and his focus is on. His name's Jamie Gissel. Mm-hmm. I've had him on the show. Is from Valor Threat Protection. He's
sounds handsome.
He's super handsome, super handsome, and he's got a great thing going down there where he's really focused on SROs, the school resource officers, because obviously those. I mean, we've seen just a couple more in California. It's the world we live in.
It sucks.
Exactly, and he invited me to a training, and it was really an exposure type of training, because there's only so much you can give these people in a 1 day course that's all the department will pay for, or whatever. There's expense that's incurred there, but these were people that were really dedicated and they wanted to do it, and departments had allocated resources for guys to be there. Other people, the resources have not been allocated, and they're still finding a way to get there. The point of this is what happens when the thing happens, right? And so this exposure, they were given multiple different exposures to these things, and you were seeing people these are officers that are wearing the uniform. They're all wearing the same gear. They're all quote unquote equipped.
Right.
But when the thing happens, and this was very realistic, where there were UTMs being used, they had the fire alarms going off, they had smoke. It was pretty. I mean, probably as realistic you could make it in a school that was closed for the day.
Absolutely.
Without completely blowing it up, right?
Yep.
The point of that is what happens when. So the officers that are on scene, right? How much? Those are the first people there, like in a school type of situation. What actually happens? What do they see? What skills do they have?
Right.
What mindset do they have? And that was the bigger part, was the mindset. And you see confident people, we're in the classroom time, we're getting the walk through, we're doing stuff, and then it happens. And the lack of skill, because of, and they've had zero training on this.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the majority of America,
yes.
right? In terms of this. And those are our most innocent, easiest targets out there, which are our kids that have very little, if any, training on this. And there's people like you and Jamie that are going out there giving this, and they're doing this outside of the department, right? These are private entities that are the same guys that are going to be running into that building head first when they get there are the guys that are running out into the public or trying to run to other agencies head first to try to give them this training. And that's where it's coming from. Most of the time they may get some minimal, block in the academy or something like that. And then they're never trained to talk to about it again. And then the thing happens. So, and to your point, you were saying, like, you see red, if we're going back to the beginning, you see red and you're going to rise to the occasion. Well, let me tell you, I saw some stuff that day and I don't think I was shocked by it. No, you certainly wouldn't be shocked, I'm sure, but I saw some stuff and I'm like, man, this is really scary, because if this is a small sample population of what's out there, and we have however many thousands of schools, I have a kid, right?
Yeah.
That's, in school, right? This is a scary prospect. And so going back to civilians and now bringing in the officers, what are their perceptions of it? You mentioned the ones in the area that you work in are fairly well trained, and they've also had incidents where that has probably stepped up the training, maybe created some more funding. There was a reaction to it in some way. But how about all the other cities, towns, major metropolitan areas across the country that don't have that or haven't had those things, there hasn't been a tragic situation that has forced this, like a Columbine or a Uvalde or I forget the name of the school in Tennessee there, the Pulse thing down in Florida and all that kind of stuff. So then it takes me to kind of the next level with regard to like an administrative level and the perception of the value, or value is not the right word, but the emphasis they put on these things in these cities. And it sounds like here it's taken very, very seriously.
Absolutely.
Maybe just talk through that a little bit, and maybe what your perception is about maybe how, because of the things that you see,
so
you train the individuals, but maybe not the agencies direct.
So like I said, the agencies here are really, really good at it. Agencies I've experienced with raw tactics, I know that when it comes to budget crunches, usually the first thing that gets cut is training funding. That's always an expendable budget that can be, well, just take from training or do this or do that. And unfortunately, training budgets in all departments aren't what they should be. And I don't work in admin, so I don't understand the numbers and whatnot to what they have to do or what they need to do with it. But from what it seems like is that these other agencies that are reactive to these situations, those admins are probably in the same clouds as the civilians. Like, it can't happen here. We're fine. It's never happened to us before. It's never going to happen, type thing. And if it does happen, we'll respond. Yeah, it's our job. We'll be there for you.
Our guys will be ready.
They'll be ready. But will they be ready? And most likely the answer is no, because if they have no training, they can be a 20-year, 25, 30-year cop on the road, but if they do not have the training to respond to an active assailant, they are no different than the day one academy recruit going through active shooter training, who, when shots are going off through that door there, we always train that every gunshot is a victim. And they hear pop and they pie it. Pop, pie a little more. Pop, flinch, and 5, 10, 15 shots go off by the time they actually get up to the door, because they're so scared to enter in there that we're like, all right, well, the goal was complete. We wanted you to make entry, and you did.
At what cost?
Okay, yeah, what cost? You took the scenic route, but you got there. But You got to get in that room now. And those officers aren't exposed to that training or that mindset or that explanation until it's already too late, to where that's the way they responded in real life, or a tragedy happened and they didn't respond quick enough. Now they're getting training afterwards, reactive to it. And now they're getting, exposed, like, oh, I got to go in on the shot. Like, I got to follow the shots. Like, we have two different types of, clearing. It's either systematic or directed threat. It's either you know where the guy's at or you don't. And when you don't know where he's at, you search everywhere until you find him. And then if you know where he's at, you go directly to him and stop the threat. If he's shooting at you, that's good. Okay, it means he's not killing little kids or whoever else. It's the priority of life or priority of safety, of what I call it in raw tactics, of the hierarchy of life. And unfortunately, civilians, hostages, and victims are ahead of you. You can't put your life in front of theirs. And if you make a decision that puts your life in front of theirs, then you're making the wrong decision. So the cops who stand outside schools, when kids are being shot and they say, well, it was very dangerous in there and I was waiting for backup, you valued your life more than theirs, which made you standing outside the wrong decision.
That's the mindset piece.
It's mindset, all mindset.
It's a challenge. I mean, I don't think there's any greater example of all of those things than what we saw happen in Uvalde, Texas. Mm-hmm. It was pretty rough.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty rough in a lot of ways. And it just played out right in front of you. And the video's all out there. People can watch it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to talk about it. But I think the next kind of thing that runs through my mind is like things like what happened in Louisiana, down in New Orleans, with the vehicles, right? And that's happened several times. You good?
Oh no, I'm good. It's just just making sure it's not text messages. Just my garage keys keep opening and closing apparently.
All right,
so
okay,
kids
cool.
are home. So
good.
Thank you.
I know you're taking time out. So if you got to go in a flash,
I appreciate it. Now we're good to go.
Okay. Just with that, these other types of threats that people don't think about until they happen. Major, again, we're in the Las Vegas area, major sporting events, major concerts, major human, just in mass things, and how you prepare for something like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know, maybe just walk through kind of higher level, like what are some of the things that, do the agencies all work together around here? I would imagine they would, right? At some level, does that happen, or is it very compartmentalized? And, have you seen a shift at any point? You've been on for a long time.
Yeah. So just from my perspective, just being an officer on the SWAT team, not a supervisor or anything, but from what I see and from what I'm a part of, we have a group here called the Fusion Center, and it's basically a group. It's a bunch of officers and employees, law enforcement employees, that are basically a watch coverall for the entire city. Like they're doing like terrorist watch lists, anything to where like there's so much stuff that happens in Las Vegas that no one knows about because these guys prevented it from happening. That's like they get the intelligence, they stop it, and they do a really, really good job of that. So they're kind of like
nobody knows about it.
No one knows about it because it's just like, hey, we stopped this from happening. There was some stuff that was planned for when the Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup. There was at least 2 incidents that was thwarted from the parade of some sort of mass event that this Fusion Center was able to thwart, which is great on their part.
Nobody hears about it.
But no one hears about it because we don't want people to know about it. Because from the law enforcement side, from the planning, I would imagine you have to balance the safety of the public with not letting them know that you're there at the same time, because no one wants a TSA experience trying to get to a parade to celebrate their team winning a championship.
Fair enough.
And no one wants that. It's almost like for like dignitary protection or executive protection, you have some principals who are protected. Like, I want you next to me right here, right now. And then you have some celebrities or whatnot. And they're like, yeah, protect me, but go away type thing. I don't want them, like, I want to be personal. I want to be with the people type thing. Like, well, okay, well, if you get fucking punched or shot or stabbed and you wanted me to be, 28 feet away from you to give you space so you're one with the people, you can't blame me for not doing my job type thing, So same thing. It's like, it's give and take for the public when it comes to protecting them for these mass events. It's like, okay, we're going to do everything we can to make sure people are safe, but at the same time, making it an enjoyable experience without inconveniencing you at the same time, because we can make it super safe. Okay. But for example, we have the event here, but we're going to have a radius, a 3-mile radius. That's going to be your first checkpoint. And 2 miles away from that, so now we're 5 miles away from the center where the event's happening, there's the first initial checkpoint. So you have a first initial checkpoint, TSA experience. Then we have another experience checkpoint. And by the time you get in, you've waited 3 or 4 hours because we're making sure there's nothing in your car, there's nothing on your person. We're doing searches, we're doing property searches, we're doing vehicle searches, doing everything, all because you're consenting. We don't have to worry about warrants or anything like that because you want to come into this, you're consenting to a vehicle search, person search, or whatnot. But we're going to take our time. We're going to run our dogs around. And that's going to take about 5 minutes per person. And we have 100,000 people showing up. At 5 minutes per person for 500,000 for 100,000 people, I don't know, I'm the Clark County Education. That's a lot of minutes,
right?
So, but that can't happen because if you want to be ultimately safe, that's what we can do. But that's never going to happen because that's where you start balancing that. Okay, how do we be there and protect without being too much Big Brother at the same time? Because everyone wants Big Brother and government and police to help them until they don't. It's like, get away from me. I don't need your fucking help. Oh my God, fucking come help me, come help me.
Right
like,
now, right now.
Yeah, like,
and I want you to do it this way.
Yeah, you told me to fucking leave.
Right.
But that's one thing I love about the profession of police is that even when like on our Instagram page and YouTube stuff, like people will send me videos, be like, look, this person shit talking to the police and anti-police and anti-this and blah, blah, blah. And I always write, you know what the greatest thing about being a police officer is, at least for me, is that I don't care how much that person shit talks me. If that person needs help, I'm going to be the first person there to help them. That's just what it is. That's just the beauty of the profession that, cops really need to take as well. Be like, I don't care if you motherfuck me 5 times and punch me in the face. But if you're getting hurt, I'm going to fucking come help you.
Still coming.
I'm still coming. You're the hero that they need, even when they don't fucking want it. And that's the great part about it. But a lot of people don't realize they need that until it actually happens.
Yeah, and what I guess what I heard you kind of walking through there in terms of that radius, example is you're trading convenience for safety.
Yeah.
And there's a false sense of security. If you want a greater sense of security, then these things you're going to have to be inconvenienced by. But then even at that, like, if you don't understand that you even need this security,
right?
Because we're doing things on a daily basis that you don't understand or that you don't know. I just wonder, like, should we be talking about it more? Like,
yeah.
But I understand why it's not talked about. That would be bad for the city, right?
Yeah.
But wow, that place sounds like it's, if I'm here in Las Vegas, that sounds like Las Vegas. What does that do to businesses?
It hurts it.
What does that do to tax revenue?
Yes,
right? What does that? Big time.
Yep. And then that's where administration, they get pushed from their bosses, city officials, like, hey, I put you in this position. Okay, you got promoted to this position. You need to make sure that this goes because, oh, you want that funding for training that we talked about? Okay, well, you screwed up on the Super Bowl. Okay, you made it to where our revenue was shit because your safety protocols were through the roof.
It's your fault.
We didn't have the people show up in the revenue. So now, we can't approve that budget for you.
But we also thwarted 3 threats that happened that exact same day at the Super Bowl.
Didn't meet our numbers, is what I would assume, these city officials would say with it. But it's, it's the TSA game. I mean, I think that's a perfect analogy of how intrusive do you want your safety? How intrusive do you want government and law enforcement to be to ensure your safety? And ensure is a very loose term because there's so many different things that can happen that aren't even thought about yet.
That was the point I was trying to make earlier.
You make fun of tweakers. You're like, can you, these tweakers, they do all this stuff. You can go inside their house, like, oh my God, they're doing this. Can you imagine what they can accomplish if they put their brain to something good? And it's like, that's what some of these criminals are, is like they're coming up with these asinine plans that we're just not even thinking of at the time. There's stuff that has happened to where, like, not to get into any details about it, but like I thought that I had a really good grasp on predators, law enforcement, victims, suspects, so on and so forth, until we started helping out the FBI with these child sex trafficking and child sex guys who lure kids on the internet to have sex with them. It's some of the stuff I learned working with the FBI on these things that some of these guys do and the hoops they go through. I was like, I never thought of that in a million years, and I will never look at X, Y, and Z the same again because I was like, holy shit, what I learned, I was like, that motherfucker deserves to be decapitated right now based off what he just said in that interview on what his intent was and what the plan was and how he got there working with X, Y, and Z. And I was like, I never even thought of that. Never in a million years, but now I do. That's the reactive training, even though I don't deal with sex crimes or anything like that. But now I know that, hey, if I need to hire a babysitter or something like that, I know not to go certain routes because I'm like, oh, they use those protected sites as a background check, and that's who you're hiring for X, Y, and Z. So I'm like, okay, reactive training for me, just for family stuff. So, but as far as, for people's safety like that, going through the TSA, it's like, yeah, we can do everything we can, but
are you?
It's what we can with an asterisk.
There you go.
We're doing everything we can, as in we have our fusion center covering. They're making sure that all the back webs and everything else and social media sites and these people who are on terrorist watch list who are being monitored, that they are being kind of just controlled at that point. Like, hey, what's this person doing? What's that person doing? Okay, that person is in town. Let's make sure that we watch them, type thing. Yeah, they're allowed to be here and they're on a watch list, but doesn't mean that they're not allowed to partake in the festivities. But let's make sure that we watch where they're going, where they're staying, stuff like that. So there's a lot of background behind the scenes stuff that can be going on like that as well. But then sometimes just the presence itself is good. Like New Year's Eve. We just had New Year's Eve here. No major incidents, knock on wood, ever since I've been a police officer, no major incidents on New Year's Eve in Las Vegas. Okay. The sheriff's department does a phenomenal job of planning that, and whoever helps them plan that and the events and coordination with the casinos and securities and bigwigs and everything do a great job, because it's just misdemeanor stuff that's arrested throughout the night. Nothing major that happens. But we have so many contingencies behind the scene as well that are ready. Our SWAT team, other SWAT teams, FBI SWAT teams, we're all strategically placed around the city to react to a major event. Like I said, react, not prevent, but react to an event that may happen. But what's stopping someone just from walking into the middle of Las Vegas Boulevard during New Year's Eve and setting off an IED? The vehicle stuff, they got pretty squared away. Like they block off the exits on the freeways and stuff like that. Like everyone knows that. Not giving any trade secrets on that. But like, you can't drive a car anywhere near the strip on New Year's Eve. Like they do have that radius buffer of that. Now, can stuff get through the cracks and stuff like that? Absolutely. But we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes too. It's like, hey, what do you think about what's going on under the city?
Right.
What about the tunnels?
Right.
So what do? We do tunnel sweeps. We do tunnel sweeps prior to any major event, which means we suit up in our trash bags and our scuba tanks and gas masks and everything else, and we go sweep the tunnels. And no one's allowed under the tunnels for these times, for these major events, because we don't want anything happening underneath the city. And then what do? They make sure that all these tunnels are manned 24/7 to make sure no one goes in those tunnels until the event is done.
For that time period, for the event. But what about all the other times?
So, but that's not happening now. So exactly. So it's, like I said, it's very reactive. We can't just, manpower is an issue, money's an issue, training's an issue. Can't be everywhere at the same time. So it's very important for citizens and the general public to just be vigilant in your own self. Just have your own plan. Like I was saying earlier, like be your own motivation, like be your own protection, because the cops aren't going to be there all the time to protect you. Like, yeah, we're going to
get there at some point.
We're going to get there as soon as we can, as fast as we fucking can. But sometimes,
hopefully Richie shows up.
So, thank you. But sometimes, hey, I'll be there in 60 seconds. Well, this is going to be over in 20. Okay. So like I can be there right away. Like we're up here on this floor. Something can happen. We can have an active shooter downstairs right now. I'm like, holy shit, let's fucking go. But what do I got to do? I'm X amount of floors up in this hotel. I got to wait for an elevator, go down the stairs. And it's going to take a few minutes. And then I got to locate where it's at. Okay. So I'm coming to help, but I can't help right now until I actually find the problem. So it's very incumbent upon them to be your own motivation, be your own training, be your own protector. Okay, you don't have to be Billy Badass. You don't have to be me. You don't have to be anybody else. You just have to be you. And what can you do to protect yourself and protect your family? If that's just the minimum that you do, that's great. I'm not asking you to go off and save the world and stop the active shooter. Just save yourself and your family. Let's just start with that. What can you do to save yourself and your family?
Yeah, some of the things I would suggest people could do better. I might submit. Like you just mentioned something there about the child sex trafficking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Look, man, you can get that information. Like it doesn't take you long if you, as a citizen who wants to protect your kids, to go through and learn how to do a lot of things. You don't have to do all the things, because you get in that rabbit hole, you're going to find out there's a lot of things to do. But I'll just come back to this. Is some fundamental things that can be done, right? To put that extra layer of protection between your kid and that predator, whatever it is. You found out some really nasty, crazy, sophisticated, whatever stuff. We could probably tell stories. I'm not asking you to disclose any of that, but my point of that is, but it started probably with something very basic, and then the thing probably trickles.
Super simple, super reliable, very well known, and you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to hire so and so from X, Y, and Z, and you're like, what the hell did I do?
Right.
Type thing.
So that's my point. Like, and it started there with something very foundational, very fundamental in terms of really understanding who you're hiring or who you're putting with your kids. What screen is what's on the screen when your kids are?
It's super fundamental. Like for me as a parent, like I have a daughter. She's almost a teenager. She has a cell phone, but she doesn't have social media. She's not allowed to have social media. She is not allowed to have sleepovers at anybody's house. Like if people want to sleep over at our house, that's fine. Okay, but should not sleep unless if it's like my best friend and they're okay, you can go over there. But it's like, I was so and so from school's having a sleepover with the team. Okay, because cheer team, dance team, stuff like that, and like that's cool. Well, we're gonna come pick you up because I don't know that family, and even if I think I know them, I still don't know them at all. Like it's so, you can call it paranoid, call it whatever, but that's that layer that we put. And there's no one watching. There's no babysitters for our kids other than family. If we can't find family, then it's I guess we don't go out. That's, a layer that we do as well, because I just don't trust anybody to watch my kids who I don't know.
I'm sure you see.
So because of the stuff like that, to be like, do I really know you? And being in law enforcement, you are exposed. You're taking that pill now to where the curtain is pulled to be like, oh my God, that guy's a suspect in this crime. And he was trusted by fucking everybody. I mean, you can name that for anyone, for any type of authority figure that is arrested for some sort of sexual molestation or rape or something like that, whether it be a teacher, whether it be a priest, whether it be a political figure, whether it be something like, I never thought.
It's the last person
I never thought, that was that person, because you don't know people, so what can you do in that aspect is, without being paranoid,
become more informed.
Yeah, just become more informed. Just
and then take some steps.
Do what you can, take steps. I don't have the answer, because what works for me may not work for you. Some would say, "Oh, Richie, you're being paranoid about not having anyone you don't know be a babysitter." We hire babysitters all the time, and we have no issues. Okay, great. I'm hopefully it continues that way, but I'm not going to do it. So that's that layer of protection that is too extreme from one person, but not extreme for me. So as far as like protecting the general public from stuff, so I may be, me personally, I understand TSA and I kind of respect it, in one aspect. Other people are like, this is the stupidest fucking thing in the world. Like, if I got to wait 5 minutes to make sure this guy has a fucking bomb in his shoe, I guess I got to wait 5 minutes to make sure he has a bomb in his shoe. I guess I'll be thankful if he doesn't blow up the plane with his shoe. One of my favorite comedians, Daniel Tosh, he has a thing about TSA. He's like, there's some things that, we got to be grateful for 9/11. He's like, one, we don't have to walk our spouse to the fucking gate anymore. Okay? Because we're not allowed through, like, hey, no more of, hey, walk me to the gate. Can you watch my plane take off and wave when we're taking off? You're like, no, drop off and see you later, type thing. Like, oh, well, thank you for that. So I was, laugh at the humor with that, to where, little things. But because I remember, growing up here, it'd be like, going through TSA was nothing. You go through TSA and we'd go hang out at the airport. Just stupid teenagers. Like, what are you going to do? Let's go hang out in the D gates. They have good restaurants over there. So let's go see just go people watch and eat some food and get some coffee or something. Funny. Now you can't do that anymore. Right. So that, that's an extra layer of security that now is annoying. We're like, well, fuck, we can't, if I want to walk my daughter to the plane or something like that, I can't do that if I don't have a ticket. Right. Tell TSA, well, we'll take care of it from here. Like, will you?
Yeah, but it could also be some dude walking your daughter to a plane and put her on a plane with somebody else.
Yeah,
to wherever.
It could be something else, but it's you got to live your life, but without being paranoid. Right. Eventually, at some point, you just have to be like, "Fuck it." Yeah. If it happens, it happens.
Well, I think what I'm taking away from this, and hopefully, I think most of the people listening to this show are pretty probably in tune with a lot of what you're saying, but you likely said some things that you have today for me that makes my ears perk up and go, I should think about that a little bit more, particularly the child trafficking thing, sex trafficking thing.
I'll tell you about it after.
Human trafficking things in general. Like, I'll share this publicly too. There's only one. We do pretty good on like Instagram and YouTube in terms of being throttled. This goes back to like getting yourself more educated and be able to find information on this stuff. And what's driving any kind of suppression of that information to get out there? We talked about tax dollars, event revenue, perception, optics, the inconvenience that could then damage somebody's pocketbook, and that's maybe more what's driving the dilution of maybe some of what could be done in whatever. But I guess my point in saying that in terms of picking things up through here is I look at, again, we talk about like trading safety for convenience, and this people wanting to live in this perfect place and not have to think about things, and the inconveniences that we do have. What I take away is, number one, these events are going to happen. More people are going to die. Let's just be more
blunt
people
about it. Yeah.
More people are going to die. Maybe it's you, maybe it's not you. Okay, so what do you do to maybe inform yourself a little bit more on how to not do that, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is when the thing is happening, people are going to show up. Who is showing up?
Yep.
What are they prepared? What are they prepared to do? What could you potentially be doing in order to, number one, avoid, or number two, engage in whatever way you can? But
how do you react in that situation?
And how would that look for you?
Coming?
Exactly. Yeah. How would that look for you? How would that look if you're with your family, or you're alone versus with other people, those kind of things. And then once they do show up on scene, what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
Right. And you were very clear about this. Like, you had trained a lot for all of these different things. Then October 1 happens. So even the guys showing up that have had all the training, that have the right mindset, that are those go-getters that are going to go do the thing, they are going to be faced with stuff that they have not been prepared for, right? They couldn't have prepared for because we haven't seen it yet, right? And what is the reality of that? And then all the way, all the other stuff, that one in particular, like when you rewind the tape, you look at it and go, okay, there were some things there, but there are very similar things that happen every single day in this city, right? In terms of people taking luggage in and whatever else. Like, I don't know what could have really been done.
Especially for 1 October, like, the dude is a common high roller there. Like, they're not going to stop a high roller from bringing in bags. Like,
precisely.
And if they are, if I'm checking in a hotel, and there's been times where I've checked in hotels when I've gone training, and you have a case, and they're like, "Oh, we got to check that case before you go up."
Really?
And yeah. And
really? I've never had that. And not since then.
And they'll be like, "Oh, you're not allowed to have guns in this property. You have to leave them in your car." And all I say is, "Okay, that's fine, no problem." And then I wait about an hour or two, and then I take them back, or I take them out of that case. I put them in my suitcase, put them in my backpack, and just walk right up.
Right.
So there's always ways to get around it.
The point of that is not you breaking the rules, but if you're breaking the rules, so is the dude that has ill intention.
Exactly.
Right.
So because no way I'm leaving the guns in my car unattended for my car to get broken into. There's no safe and there's nothing like that. I want to make sure that this stuff is with me at all times. So now I travel with cases, like my gun case is a guitar case.
Right.
Yeah. So it's all my guns are in a guitar case.
Which are available online. I can order one of those on Amazon.
Yeah.
And so can the shit bag.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and maybe they check it, maybe they don't, but that's just one of the things of how paranoid do you get as the civilian of living in 2025 of not if but when. There's something that we have to live with. Like, it sucks that you have to think that I think and you think and people listening think that I got to send my kid to school with a coin flip on whether or not a shooter is going to show up today.
Think about this every day.
Like, it's the worst thing to think about. I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like, I have a fucking little boy and a teenage girl that go to different schools, and I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like, oh my God, I hate this. And to the point to where if we're like, you're in a sporting event or something, and you're thinking to yourself, and my wife always asks me, like, what do we do if something goes wrong here? Like, just stick with me, and if we get separated, you know what to do. We have our plan, we have our protocol. Last October, we're big Padres fans for baseball, so we go there for Padres baseball during the playoffs. They're playing the Dodgers. Fuck the Dodgers, go Padres type thing.
I'm a Giants fan, so I'm with you. Oh,
so yeah, perfect. So I can deal with the Giants.
We can agree on the Dodgers.
So, yeah, fuck the Dodgers. And so we're there in San Diego, Game 4. The last game that they won for the Dodgers freaking just destroyed us and for the rest of the series. But as my wife didn't know that when Suarez, the closing pitcher for the Padres, comes into play, they dark out the stadium, and then it's dark for about 2 or 3 seconds. And they start doing fire and out animatronics as his entrance. But she legitimately got freaked out because she thought it was something wrong. Like she's like, "What the fuck just happened?" Like that's a common thing now. Like, hey, the lights are on now. All of a sudden, it's completely dark in the stadium. Like, are we being attacked? What's going on? Is there a bomb going to go off? Is someone just going to start spraying the crowd with an AK-47? What's going on here? And
legit concerns.
It's legit concerns in 2025 to think about that. If you're at a sporting event, a concert, a venue, out just walking out on the street, we had can't remember if it was a year ago, 2 years ago, that a guy who was going on the strip and he had a chef's knife and he was killing people with these things are like, it will cut off your wrist type knife, and he's just stabbing people. And I had the unpleasant, experience of watching the surveillance footage of on the strip about this. It's like, oh my God, this couple's just walking and he just comes up and all of a sudden, there's a knife in you, dead, done. And you're like, what the fuck is going on?
It's reality, yeah.
So it's just reality, and stuff like that's just situational awareness. I teach a situational awareness class to real estate agents out here that's approved through the Nevada Real Estate Commission and everything else that deals with situational awareness. But it's not just for them. It's just it's a whole program of we go through this presentation and lots of real life examples of who's here actually paying attention to their surroundings. And the way I define situational awareness is that you are actively engaged in what's going on in your surroundings. Okay, doesn't mean you have to be paying attention to what they're doing, you're doing. You just have to be knowing what's going on and so actively engaging what's going on in your surroundings. Okay, so right now, if I'm down at my phone, I'm not actively engaged with what's going on in my surroundings. I know where I'm at, I know who's around me, but I don't know what they do when they come up. So just it's every company, every person talks about it. Be situational aware.
But what does that?
What does it actually mean? It's like, just know what you're doing, know where you're going, keep your head up, walk with a purpose, look around you. And sometimes I know it's hard. I find myself sometimes I'm like, being on Instagram and YouTube, and you post something, I'm like, I wonder how many likes I'm at now. Oh, red light. Let me see real quick.
Right.
And I'm like, dumbass, you just said don't fucking do this, because you don't know what bum's coming up to your window. I'd be lying if I didn't say this. Sometimes I'm on my phone on a text message for work or something like that, and all of a sudden there's a knock on my window. I'm like, holy shit, I had no idea you were there. You could have came up with a shotgun and blasted me, and that's my fault. Okay, but so purpose means that I'm still going to live my life. I'm going to do what I do. I'm not going to be paranoid, but I am going to be aware of what's going on in my surroundings. I'm going to have a plan of, hey, what happens in this situation? What happens in that situation? This is how I'm going to react. Have a plan with your family. And
have that conversation.
Yes, you have to have that conversation. I tell my family and I tell people when I'm teaching active shooter, and they're in like the recruits or people, if I'm teaching a civilian class or I'm teaching an academy class, like, hey, what do you do if you're off duty in an active shooter? You say you're in the mall or movie theater, and what do you do? I say, okay, who am I with? That's the first question. Yep. If I'm by myself, I respond. If I'm by myself, I'm off duty, I'm going direct a threat and I'm responding. I said, but if I'm off duty and I have my family with me, or any family or anyone I care about, good luck. Right. Because my response right now is getting my family and that person I care about out and safe. And once I can guarantee their safety, then I may go back in.
Readdress, yeah.
Yeah, I may address it. Okay. But if I'm by myself, I'm all yours. I'm going straight to it. 100%. 100%. But if I'm off duty with my family, sorry, you're not my number one priority. My family is.
Sure.
And I'm going to get them out, and I'm going to do everything I can to get them out. I'm not going to help you. I don't care if you're bleeding out, or I am not going to help you because I'm getting my family out. And that's a plan that my family knows and everything else. And that's a plan that you should probably have with your family. Like, what do we do in this situation? What do you do if you're a cop and you're going through the store and a guy you arrested for a drug offense comes up to you and starts talking with you or threatening you, and you're with your family? Does your family, your wife, your kids know what to do? Like, my family knows immediately to create distance and just go away. Don't, hey, Dad, who's this? Or what, do you know him? Just fucking go. I'll be like, I may even tell, I don't even fucking know these people. What do you want? So they know to create distance. It's a plan that we have.
Sure.
To, hey, if Dad gets approached by someone and it's something, we may or may not, this is our family thing, have a code word or a phrase or something like that is said to let them know, get the fuck away, go to the car, abandon ship, get to safety right now. Okay. And that's something that we have, because that's the world that we live in. Maybe that's something that, if you're listening, maybe that's something you can implement. We always say, if like we go to Disneyland a lot, I always tell my wife, or I tell my wife, my daughter, my kid, if we ever get separated and for some reason we can't get to our phones or our phones don't work because, reception's shitty, right? If we're separated, we're going to meet at this spot. And I will not leave this spot until I see, like, this is our meetup spot. We have a general location. If we have any type of mass event in the valley, my family and extended family, we know, hey, we're going to rally up at this point of the city in order to,
do whatever
it is that we need to do. So, Nuke hits Las Vegas, Nuke hits Hoover Dam, Boulder Dam, something like that. Okay, shit, we're kind of on the outskirts of that. All right, let's rally up and we're all going to meet. Anyone who can meet here, we're meeting here. And that's, so it's just little plans like that. Just at least just talking about it. And that can be for any sporting event, major event, concert, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be a Navy SEAL plan, a SWAT team plan, or anything like that. Like, all right, on this command, we're going to evac and exfil and do this, that, and the other. Just have a simple plan. Like, hey, let's just meet here. Let's communicate and let's just, try to be as safe as possible. Yeah, sometimes that's all you can do.
We're not ruining the event, the time that we're doing. We're just, I think the more often you have the conversation, the more normalized it gets. So it's not weird.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you're going into this thing. Okay. We say this thing. Everybody knows what to do. Now we can get on with our day.
Yep.
Right. We can get on with our day. And should something really bad happen, at least we talked about it.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think actually you brought up some really good examples, like personal examples, grocery store. Well, if you're a law enforcement officer, somebody comes up to you that you may have put in jail, dude, we get approached and accosted by just weirdos or shitbags all the time for whatever the reason is, living in downtown areas or being in the city or whatever. It's no different. I mean, you may have a different relationship with that person if you put handcuffs on them and put them in jail, but it's a realistic thing. You again, like grocery store as an example. You're at the mall, you're at Disneyland, there were several examples there of real life things that people can relate to. That this does not take a lot of work, by the way. This is just having the conversation. And I guess in just sort of wrapping up here, we talked about a lot of things today, and it all very much intertwined. And I think, when we get to like what's happening with these mass events and how it breaks down, interesting to see how people react when things do go down, right? And you can tell, this is awful to say, but I'm going to say it. And that is, there are people that are often caught up in these situations where you can see they've never even fathomed any of this. Like, there's shock and there's awe at a lot of this stuff, but you can see they've never even fathomed this, and they freeze. They don't know what to do. There's clearly no plan. And then there's people that probably you're never going to see, right? That did. And the reason that they're not injured or caught up in this is because they had thought about this. Maybe thinking about it, it was like, it's probably best that we don't even go to that thing. Let's choose something else to go. That might be the best plan of all. But the reality of it is you can't live your life, in isolation.
You'll never do anything.
Right. Or you'll never do anything. So what can you do? And again, just bringing up those points, I mean, there's some stark realities that you outlined there, I thought, in a really good way. Just about, hey, this is reality of what's being faced, and here's all the people involved, and here's how they interact, and here's how they don't interact, and here's what they may be prepared for. Here's what they're definitely not prepared for. There's too many things for us to prepare for, so we don't know. We should expect that more of those things are going to happen, more than ever in 2025. Where are we in the world right now? It's a little weird. It's a little weird. It's a little aggressive, right? In a lot of cases. But I will say this: I'm grateful that I've once again been validated. It's been validated for me that there are people out there doing the job that you're doing in the way that you're doing it, man.
Thank you.
And I mean that across the board. As a dad, and I'm start from one side and work to the other. Start as being a dad, as a family man who's taking care of the business there, then moving into your personal business and raw tactics and what you're doing and helping other dads and helping other citizens and helping other cops do that. And then obviously what you're doing on the law enforcement side, currently. Because I talk to a lot of people that don't have the leadership that you provide, right?
Oh, thank you.
I get hit a lot, through social media and whatnot. Like they'll hear this and they will reach out. And I'm horrible, actually, because I'm going through my day-to-day or whatever and taking screenshots and sending them to guests and go, dude, I'll often follow up at some point and go, hey, man, I just want to let you know it's been nothing but positive feedback. And if they ask me, the guests ask me like, well, what specifically? And then I can go back and search it. I try to bring that stuff to the table, but I am certain people will be hearing this and going, God, it's good to hear that there's other people doing what I'm doing as a cop or as I'm doing as a leader. I get a lot of that. And I'm going to share this with, or oftentimes it's also, I don't have that kind of leadership here, but there were some really great points there. Like, I'll bring this up because this really stood out to me, is how you outline the RSO program, right? Like, hey, man, that's a great idea. Like, never thought of that. I'm going to suggest this. And that's where that shit starts, at least in terms of changing things. So again, once again, I've been validated that there's a really great, there's a large part of this population that's out there, and that is being police officers that are really doing the right things with all the shit that they take, all the complaining that's going on. And when I didn't hear you complain at all.
No,
right? Not one time. Like, where does that get you? You just walk through. Look, I have all these things to do. We're getting them done. I'm sure it's not all fucking peaches and cream, every day and all that stuff. I'm sure you're running your roadblocks, but I didn't hear you piss and moan about it, And that's kind of just a little bit of a mission that I've been going on, is searching out, like what are the answers? And sometimes I think this is the bigger thing at the end of the day, is the leading by example, and that to me, you are that example. And I articulated that in, if my mom has to call 911 or my daughter has to call 911 or CC has to call 911, it's the guys like Richie that I want showing up.
Well, thank you.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're welcome. But thanks for being here and sitting through here and entertaining all my questions and, my giving me really thoughtful and articulate answers. You seem very fluid. That did not seem rehearsed, right? Which is also very cool, right? Like, this is just who you are. It's just what you do. It was very genuine.
If anyone knows me, they're like, "Oh, Richie, he likes to talk." No way. So,
so that said, man, I just real quick and signing off here, just with raw tactics in your personal business and stuff like that. How do people reach out, find out more about you, or potentially get you out to teach a class or get into one of your classes, or get more information, just to maybe just connect with you and find out how you might be able to help them? What can you tell us?
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. Well, we have our website, rawtactics.com, or people call it RA Tactics, Raw Tactics, ratactics.com. We have our YouTube page, YouTube.com/Raw Tactics. You can find us on Instagram. So those are the major three, is just the website, Instagram, and YouTube. Ranges host us all the time, bring us out for firearms classes, CQB classes, law enforcement agencies. You can just shoot us a DM on Instagram, shoot me an email, something like that, or emails out there, phone number, whatever it may be. We'll hook you up, and we'll definitely go from there. Make sure you get the best training that we can provide for you. So
I believe that. Like, and I mean, one of these days, again, the triple fig guys are out here. A lot of them are out. They invite me all the time, and I feel terrible saying no all the time to come out and train. I'd love to get into one of your classes one day and kind of check it out, see it, man. Yeah, if there's anything I can do to support you, we'll put the podcast out. It wasn't about the business and promoting. That's not what this podcast is. It was about all the other value that you provided. But if there's anything else, if there's anything I can do to help you in any of the things that you're doing, spreading the message and the way that you're spreading it, which I think is the really important part. All you got to do is ask, man.
Thank you so much. Likewise, anything I can do to help you out with this podcast and everything. I was checking it out and I was like, holy shit, this dude's onto something, like doing something really good. So
thanks for that, man.
That gets pushed out to our guys as well. Be like, hey, you should probably check this out. So,
well, the best compliments I ever get are the ones where listeners reach out to tell me this was really impactful. I've sent it up the line to, again, leadership, or sent it out to my team, whatever else. That's the best compliment. But thank you for saying that. I do appreciate it, man. And again, hopefully it's helpful for people. I think it will be. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. We'll get you back to probably work.
It is work.
Because it sounds like you pretty much, there may be a little time in there for a workout and maybe some time to eat or whatever else, but it sounds like you're pretty much working all the time.
We're probably in the next couple hours going to be activated on something that we got heads up on a few hours ago. So.
All right. Well, go refuel, rehydrate, rest up, clear your brain so you can be ready for that, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you, man. Awesome.